Alright, Daniel here, I'm back, and in this video, or starting from this video, you are actually going to implement the meaningful commands of our file system application. Now, take a little while or a minute or two to familiarize yourself with the design that we have so far. So with states of the world, with the file system application, directory entries, and commands which are ready to be expanded. Commands themselves, such as make directory, touch, echo, and so on and so forth, they're interesting in their own right, which is why we are implementing them separately in the videos that we're starting with right now. Here in this video, in this particular video, we are going to implement the creation of directories. We're going to create Mkdir, which is pretty challenging, and we have a lot of work to do, and this will stretch out your muscles in what concerns immutable data structures. So make directory is one of the key commands here in the file system that actually deals with immutable data structures. Without further ado, let's get started. Now, the crux of creating commands is going to be this from factory method in the command companion object. So here it is the place where we are going to create all the possible commands depending on which input we're going to supply from the quote-unquote command line, right? So right now we're issuing unknown command, but this logic is going to change. In our case, we're going to create Mkdir, and otherwise, if we don't supply Mkdir or we supply anything else other than Mkdir, we're going to create unknown command, right? First of all, Mkdir is a command which takes a number of arguments. We are going to assume, for the purpose of this implementation, that Mkdir takes a single argument. That is, we are going to say Mkdir something, and that something is going to be the name of the folder that we want to create, right? So first of all, we need to separate the command from the arguments themselves. So we need to separate the tokens from the full command that we supply from the command line, which is why I'm going to create a value here that I'm going to call tokens, and this tokens value is going to be input.split. The split method splits the string into an array of smaller strings which are separated by space. So input split space is going to give me an array of string. This is an array of string, which is like simple arrays in more conventional programming languages. I'm going to show you how to use that in a second. It's very, very simple. And this array of strings is going to hold all my tokens. The first token is going to be the command itself, which is mkdir or cd or pwd or something else. And the rest of the tokens are going to be the arguments. So let's implement some logic here. So for example, if tokens is empty, then I don't have anything. So I'm going to supply an empty command. Empty command here is going to be a method that I'm going to define right now. So I'm going to define empty command, which is going to return a command. I'm going to leave this unimplemented for now. And otherwise, if tokens 0 is mkdir, so mkdir equals token 0, this is the way that you get the first token, the first element of the tokens array. In more conventional programming languages like Python or C++ or Java, you would write something like this. But in Scala, you need to supply parentheses. So tokens with parentheses 0 means tokens.apply, which returns the first element of the tokens array. So if mkdir equals the first token, then I'm going to create a new mkdir, but that is only if I also have an argument. So if tokens length is less than 2, that means I only have mkdir without any other argument, which doesn't really make sense. So I'm going to supply an incomplete command, which again is going to be a method that I'm going to leave unimplemented. So incomplete command, and I'm going to pass in a name here, and this is going to be a command. I'm going to leave this unimplemented for now. So these 3 question marks means nothing, return nothing. This is not implemented. And if I call this this method in my actual application, the Scala or the JVM is going to throw an exception at me because I don't have the method implemented. But I'm supplying it here because I want the code to compile. So if token's length is less than 2, I'm going to supply an incomplete command with mkdir. So this incomplete command is going to basically state that, hey, mkdir is incomplete, you need an argument. So much in the same way that we said command not found here, we're going to say mkdir incomplete command or something like that. But we're going to implement them in a second. So if token's length is less than 2, I'm going to supply an incomplete command. Otherwise, I'm going to have a token at my disposal. So I'm going to create a new mkdir with tokens 1. Mkdir is going to be a class which I'm going to implement right now. So I'm going to create a class called Mkdir in the commands package with name, which is a string, extends a command. Of course, I'm going to override def apply of state because I need to. No, not stack trace, state, please. Alt enter so that I import my types. I'm going to leave this unimplemented for now. Back to the command, I create a new mkdir with tokens 1. Now what happens is that I'm taking only the token 0, which is the command itself, and tokens 1, which is the single argument of mkdir. Notice here that I'm not considering the case where I'm saying mkdir something space something else. That something else is going to be ignored for now. Okay, this is like a design decision so that we don't get caught into too many unnecessary details. So feel free to have that implemented in your own code if you wish. Now, because mkdir, this little string, is used in 2 places, one development pattern that we should get into the habit of using is to extract them into a constant. So I'm going to extract this into a constant, val mkdir, which is going to be this guy, and use that constant everywhere. So make sure that you never leave like literal strings in more than one place. Make sure to extract them into constants, right? So if mkdir equals token 0, then if token's length is less than 2, incomplete command. Otherwise, an mkdir, which we're going to implement very shortly. But first of all, let's implement the empty command and incomplete command methods, because we're going to use them in with the later methods and with the later commands as well. So empty command is going to be a very, very simple method. It's going to be I'm not actually going to bother creating a new class. I'm going to supply a new command here. If you remember, this is an anonymous class, and I'm going to override def apply on the spot. State returns new state, and the empty command is not going to do anything, so it's just going to return the same state as well. Awesome. The incomplete command is going to be a new command as well, so override def apply with a parameter state, which is a state with capital S, returns a state with capital S, and the incomplete command is going to say this guy is an incomplete command. So state.setMessage, I'm going to say name plus, remember the string concatenation, I'm going to put in a colon here, and I'm going to say incomplete command. Awesome. So remember, state.setMessage creates a new state. We're actually in a good position to test the empty command and incomplete command right now. So let me go to my file system and right click and run. So if I say hello, probably it's going to say command not found, right? Now if I say mkdir and let's create a directory. Oh, it's going to say command not found. And why is that? I think it's because we're always returning new unknown command. So let's just put in an else here. Okay. And let's run this again. And let's apply mkdir, just the empty mkdir. So I'm just going to say mkdir incomplete command. See, it works. And if I hit an empty command, I'm not really sure what happens. See, I'm receiving command not found, and I'm pretty sure I know why this is. So we're returning an unknown command, basically, because we're receiving command not found, and that is because the tokens array is never empty. That is because even as the input is an empty string, the tokens, which is an array of string, will always contain the empty string as its first element. So tokens itself is never empty. We might want to add a new condition here, which say input is empty or tokens is empty. So if input is empty, that means I'm returning, if I'm inputting an empty string, and this guy says the array is empty, which probably should not be the case. Probably at all. So if I hit an empty command, see, it doesn't actually do anything anymore because we have an empty command. Cool. Now, if I say mkdir something, I'm theoretically supposed to create this directory here, but I'm probably going to hit an error because my mkdir.apply is not implemented. So as you see here, we're getting a not implemented error because an implementation is missing, which is our very own def apply for mkdir. Now, how do we implement this apply method? Well, we have quite a lot of work ahead of us. Let's sketch out the logic here. First of all, we're going to have to receive the working directory from our state of the world. So we're going to say val wd is going to be state.wd. Now, if this working directory already has the entry with this name, so if there is already a file or a folder with this name, then we're going to error out on the command. So if wd already has entry this name, then I'm going to return state.setMessage entry space and name plus already exists. In this has entry method, we're going to add it. So I'm not really sure if IntelliJ already has some utility things. I'm pretty sure it does. But I'm going to create this method by hand in the directory class. So I'm going to say def has entry with a name, which is a string, and this guy returns a boolean. Unimplemented for now. We're going to implement it later. Okay, so now this code is not read anymore. Now, otherwise, if this name that I'm supplying here contains directory separator, which is a slash, this guy. So if the name is already containing the slash, I'm also going to quote unquote throw an error, not really throw an error, but set the message to the state. We're not going to allow, for example, mkdir something / something else. So this will be forbidden. If you want to implement mkdir -p, which is the Linux version of absolute paths, then feel free to implement this after we're done with our own implementation. But for now, we're going to forbid this as it currently stands. So I'm going to return the state, not set message. I'm going to say name plus must not contain separators. Okay. Cool. Otherwise, what else do we need to do? We need to check that this name is legitimate. We are going to implement a special check illegal or something like that. We're going to add a method which checks that this name is actually legit, because we can supply dot and dot dot and that kind of stuff, which are relative paths, you remember from our previous discussions, and we must forbid that for now. So passing in the parameter name, and we're going to say state dot set message name plus a colon, which is illegal entry name. For now, this check illegal with name, which is a string, and returns a boolean, is going to say just that dot and dot dot is contained in the entry name. So I'm going to say name contains dot. Okay, that's everything. If you want to create some additional restrictions, like you want to restrict dashes and that kind of stuff, you can add this kind of logic in this method. But it's very useful that this method is standalone in its own right, and not create the conditions right here in the if statement directly. Okay, and otherwise, I'm going to actually run the mkdir command. So do mkdir. I just named this do mkdir, and I'm going to pass in the actual name here. So I'm going to pass in name. And the do mkdir name is going to be a small method. Def do mkdir name, which is a string, and also the state, because do mkdir, remember, being part of the apply, is going to return a state. So I'm going to pass in the current state and the directory name that I want to create. So I'm going to pass in here a state and a name, and this is going to return a new state. Cool. Awesome. Now, if I do not implemented, oh, okay, this name is do mkdir with a lowercase d. Awesome. So here I'm going to actually implement the directory creating logic in this method, not in the apply method. The apply method has the overall logic for dealing with the command itself and with the argument. And here in the do mkdir, I'm actually going to create the directory. Now I'm actually going to take a break and continue this in the next video, because the directory creation logic is pretty involved, and this video would get exceedingly long. So take a small break, and I'm going to see you in the next video very, 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 very shortly.